We speak now to Head of Energy Secretariat at SANEDI, Professor Sampson Mamphweli. Professor, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the late edition. Eskom has resumed load reduction in 7 provinces, but insisting that it's load reduction and not load shedding. How do we tell the difference?
Good evening to you and the viewers. So with load reduction, it's implemented when the system is actually overloaded to avoid equipment failure, like what Eskom is saying. In most cases, where it's in built-up areas where people actually increased the load of the particular areas. So what happens is that when Eskom and other utility companies install their equipment and they agreed to service particular areas, they look at the potential load of the particular area, and then they size their transformers and substations to be able to carry the load based on the projected number of people and businesses in the particular area. So when the number of people and businesses exceed the projected number of businesses and people in the particular area, it basically adds to the pressure on the equipment, the transformers, and the substations. And in that case, then Eskom implements load reduction to reduce the demand on their equipment. Whereas the opposite is the same with load shedding. Load shedding is implemented when the system is heavily constrained in terms of the supply side of things, not on the demand side of things. In other words, when there's shortage of generation capacity, then load shedding is implemented to basically secure the integrity of the system. Where Eskom or other utilities, such as your city power, implement load reduction, we have seen that it's either there's an increase or a spike in the number of backyard dwellers that have connected to main houses, or there is an increase in the number of informal settlements that have connected illegally in the Eskom network. That leads to the demand even exceeding the additional capacity that Eskom would have implemented in the particular area. So that's the main difference. How load reduction is implemented in their areas where you have the two circuit breaker kind of systems, where you've got a 20 amp breaker and a 63 amp breaker installed in houses, where Eskom can be able to access those breakers in houses and businesses. So when the system gets to be overloaded, they then switch between the two circuit breakers. Your bigger circuit breaker, they switch it off, and then you rely on your smaller breaker for supply of the house. In some cases, they implement what we call the geyser control systems, or remote geyser control systems, where they can switch off your geysers remotely without you noticing, and that does not necessarily affect the life in the house. In areas where they don't have those two options, they go for basically switching off particular areas to protect the transformers in those particular areas. And during what they do that, then they do that during the time of peak hours, which is mainly early in the morning or late towards the evening, when people come back from work and then they start to use electricity.
We also know that there are indications that the electricity problems will devolve into the local level, where they will now become even more difficult to solve. As that consideration is under the spotlight, you've spoken a little bit about some of the concerns. You've spoken about the impact of business and the number of community members. What are some of the areas of concern?
There are big areas of concern, especially on the municipal infrastructure side, the distribution lines and the transformers and the substations. where municipalities have not invested money in the maintenance and expansion of that particular infrastructure. The Minister of Energy and Electricity spoke about this at length in his briefing, indicating that most municipalities are not investing the money back in the maintenance of these systems and also in the upgrading of the various systems, because in most cases the municipalities can see that the numbers have increased in particular areas because of the demand that they would pick up on their side, but then they delay in terms of adding the capacity in the form of bigger transformers and adding capacity in substations. So those are some of the things that are of great concern going forward. Municipalities are also not paying Eskom in terms of the money that they're supposed to pay for the bulk supply that they get from Eskom, and that is also a big area of concern, because then Eskom is left with no money to actually implement their proper maintenance of their own systems. So those are the two main big concerns at the moment.
Yeah. What consequences do you think that some councils could face as they try and address this issue? Because for one, we know in Joburg, City Power has now implemented a 200 Rand network charge on prepaid customers.
Yeah, so the 200 network charge, once off, it's also meant for them to be able to maintain the network, because in the past they were not charging this kind of amount, and then they are now claiming that because they were not charging this kind of amount, they don't have enough money to service or to maintain the networks. So that is another thing that is coming on board, which most people are very much against. Unfortunately, there are no clear consequences for municipalities when it comes to their obligation to supply electricity to the consumers in the areas where in their areas of jurisdiction. There are also no consequences when it comes to the issue around the debt, the Eskom debt by municipalities. My view is that government needs to take a serious stance on that, especially at provincial and national level, and be able to maybe put these kind of municipalities that are owing Eskom under administration, so that they can then be able to collect the revenue and pay Eskom in time. There must also be other consequences, when municipalities are not adhering to some of these kind of things going forward as well.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on this discussion.